for having me. Let me see if I can turn on my share correctly again. And then let me find the chat box again. Come back. Well, that's going to take a sec. So I can't see the chat. All right, hang on, you guys. Bear with me.
Were you able to see it before?
Yeah. Let me
So
find it again.
the screen where it says you're sharing your screen, if you put your cursor up there, it should drop down. There should be a menu that drops down, and then there should be a more section. If you click on that more section, potentially it
I've
could.
got the people. There it is. It's coming.
There you go.
Okay. I'm smarter than I look here. Okay, hi, let's try again. Welcome, thank you guys for coming. I am Leanne Page. I'm a behavior analyst, obviously. I'm an author. I have a book called Parenting with Science and another one coming out next week called Enjoy Parenting. So follow me at Parenting with ABA so I can tell you how to get free copies for all your people. So we are going to talk this evening about reaching parents effectively. Not necessarily about the nitty gritty of writing goals and parent training and insurance and that kind of stuff, because that's not my world. Sorry, someone else can talk to you about all that stuff, but how to talk so parents will listen and how to be more human. Your BH3, how to be more honest, humble, and human. And totally random, but I'm from the Houston area, and there is a suburb near Houston called Humble. It's spelled the same way, but you don't say the H. So every time I say that out loud, I go, did I say it like the town? And I sound like an idiot, but it's Humble with an H. So every single time I worry about that. So big topics that we're going to talk about today. A lot about empathy mapping. If you've never heard of that, I hadn't either until not too long ago. Prioritizing needs, how to talk so people will listen, not using jargon and all of our technical terms, and then a little bit about behavior skills training, because that's really our gold standard. So I have more than an hour's worth of content, so I'm going to try to keep an eye on the clock and we'll just stop. So no one let me talk too long. Aaron, don't let me talk too long. So what are soft skills and why do we even care about this? And soft skills are something you hear about like in the HR world kind of thing, not necessarily something we hear about. That's not on our task list that we teach in supervision. It's not technical. It's not something we do in our master's programs, but it's defined as, I'm going to read this one, the interpersonal attributes you need to succeed in the workplace. So this is something you'll read about on LinkedIn or something, but really thinking about communication and critical thinking and positive attitude and teamwork and all of these sorts of things. But really, it's just how you relate to others. So are you that robotic behavior analyst that is like, well, what does the data say? And that's it. Or do you have the soft, like think of the word soft skills to relate to these parents and reach them better. And honestly, as when I was a younger BCBA, I've been certified a long time, 2010. So almost 10 years, because this is 2020, almost 10 years when I was young and I wasn't a parent and I was that robot and I did terrible parent training. So I say that from a point of, oh my gosh, I have been there. And I realize now the things that I was asking these parents to do was ridiculous, and that I wasn't using soft skills. I wasn't kind and empathetic and these sorts of things. So we should care about soft skills. And I think honestly, if you're in this group, you have more of them than a lot of people. Let's be honest, you're here for a reason and you embrace the BH3, like you're here. But also how we're training others and how we're training supervisees and grad students and RBTs and other people like that. How can we teach this stuff? But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk more about empathy and this word empathy, and how we use it to do a better job, to do our job of helping parents more. And I think you guys, I've given this same presentation, not the exact, but versions of it before COVID-19 happened. And then after it happened, this is so much more important. Having empathy for these families is like always important, but right now it's a lot. And so how can we relate to them and what these families who have kids with severe behavior problems who are stuck at home all the time, finding a way to have empathy for them now is even more important than ever. So empathy requires perspective taking. All of this right here that you're looking at comes from an article that's linked at the bottom. talking about being aware and understanding the other person's situation and perspective. We're talking about perspective taking, something you might think about when teaching social skills. But the big point right here, y'all can read the words on the screen, but the big point is communicating that understanding. So yes, I hear you and I see you and I am trying to relate to what you're dealing with. And I say those words out loud to you, not just thinking it and kind of planning it and thinking about them in your head. And that's really nice of you and that's kind. But saying those words out loud to them is like, oh man, I hear you. That sounds like a lot. Just validating what they're going through. So this is something nerdy that I'm really interested in, words and where they come from and, kind of the background. And so this is just a little nerd input on empathy for you. But the concept of empathy started in the early 1900s. And I like their words that it literally means in feeling. So I'm in the feeling with you. In feeling. We are in a feeling together, or I'm trying to be in your feeling and see from in your shoes what you're dealing with. The empathy was started as a passive reflection, as I see, but also an active effort to get inside. So it's not just, okay, I see, man, but getting in there and like, okay, let me really look at what's going on here. And that's what we should be good at as behavior analysts, right? Analyzing the situation and the variables and the environment and all that good stuff. But actively doing that, not just thinking about it, being a nice person, being a good human, but actively jumping in and thinking about what they're dealing with and talking to them about it out loud. Come on. And this is more of the same thing. It has the affective sharing. This is what your history on empathy a little bit, but also the perspective taking and the cognitive empathy. So it's the feeling. The affective sharing is that we're going to have feelings together, and that's a hard thing for us as behavior analysts to talk about sometimes. We don't often talk about our feelings and how everybody's feeling, but also that perspective taking and that cognitive empathy is the part that we should be better at, honestly. And empathy research and talking about empathy measurement and empathy scales and all this is really big in other fields, not in ours. So we can learn from that and take little pieces of it, obviously. It's not super easy to define as a target behavior and to measure as a target behavior. And so that's why we're not going to sit here and do a research study on it. But we can learn from that to do our work better. So empathy research is really big in social work. And I'm going to quote Brene Brown to you a few times because I really love her and she's real big in social work. Cognitive neuroscience, child and family studies, autism, just kind of general autism journals and things like that. You'll find a lot about empathy. Nurse training, which I found extra interesting in our current situation too, that they spend a lot of time in nurse preparation coursework. And once I started reading about that online, I then texted my friend who's a nurse practitioner, PhD, like she teaches nurses, and then she gave me an earful about it too. So that's legit. She is teaching all about empathy to her nursing students. But in our field in ABA journals, we don't see that. There's not a lot of people telling us to be more empathetic and nicer to the parents we're working with. Again, because it's not easy to define. It's not something that is one of our functions of behavior that we're already always looking at. But that doesn't mean we don't need it to do better, to do parent training better. So here she is. Here's Brene Brown. I really like this point that she makes in Rising Strong. She has YouTube videos about it. She has some of the key points. She repeats in lots of places, but empathy, compassion, and sympathy are not the same. And I really like, especially thinking that compassion and empathy are not the same, because I feel like I'm good at compassion, but I'm not good at empathy. And realizing that there's a difference lets me know that I can do better and something that I can work on. So compassion is recognizing the struggles and being kind to others. And that's kind of where, me too, I get you, like we're side by side, we're in this together. But empathy is taking it deeper. It's understand what they're experiencing. And again, that same thing from earlier, reflect back that understanding. So it's more than just like a hug, a pat on the back, a virtual hug, I should say now. It's getting in their shoes and trying harder to see what they're seeing and feel what they're feeling and reflecting that back to them. Sympathy, she makes it sound terrible. It's a tool for distancing yourself from the pain of others. It's like, that sucks. And that's that. So she makes it sound bad. I thought sympathy was a good thing. But when you think about it in light of comparison to these other things, compassion is good and we should have that and we should be kind. And yes, we're in it together. But if you are trying to really work with a family and help these parents through this crazy hard time they're in right now, but all the time, a lot of these parents we work with are in really hard times. We got to take it further into empathy and trying our hardest to see through their eyes and telling them that and reflecting that to them with our own words, with our own verbal behavior. So these 4 points, there's a lot of words here because I liked them all. So the 4 points that are here are from nursing training and how they have broken down empathy, kind of the most behavior analytic, the most broken down task analysis of empathy I could find. But then the dots are Brene Brown's kind of take on it that takes it a little bit further. So being able to see the world as others see it. I've said that like 10 times already. And then being able to put your own stuff aside. We all see things through our lens of our history. And we know that. We get that as behavior analysts, that we have our own history and our own reinforcement history and our own learning histories. And that's how we see the world. But to use empathy, we have to put our own stuff aside and do our best to see it through someone else's lens. So that's super challenging. The second one is to be non-judgmental. I really like that they included that as part of the task analysis, part of the basis of what is empathy. You're not allowed to judge other people if you're being empathetic to them. That, defeats the whole purpose of trying to be there with them in their shoes. And when we do use judgment, it's a self-protection thing to distance ourselves, again, kind of like with the sympathy definition, that the judgment is, your hard shell to distance you so you don't have to feel the feelings with them in their situation. To understand that other person's understanding, the other person's feelings. Again, putting your own stuff aside because we have our own feelings about everything that's going on. And especially like right now with what's going on right now, I'm on day 17 of self-quarantine with my 5 and 3-year-old. I am struggling to be supportive of other parents because my job as a parent is beating me down. And that's just the truth. And so in order for me right now to be supporting other parents better, I have to take a breather and find a way to put my own stuff aside and recognize that it is hard. And then in having empathy with them, it's a little easier because they're probably beaten down too at the moment. Getting into their shoes and feeling it and being there with them. Putting your own stuff aside is really hard. And it's really hard, especially right now, because there's a lot of stuff. There's so much stuff right now, no matter where we are, on what day you are of quarantine or self-isolation or whatever you want to call it, social distancing. And then the last thing is communicating the understanding. And I really like the examples given. Instead of saying, well, at least you have your family at home with you, that kind of garbage that just irritates the hell out of me right now. Well, at least your kid isn't, punching through the walls. Or it could be worse. Remember when your kid used to be really violent and we got those behaviors under control? That's not what we want to be saying. Instead, that really hurts. It sounds like you're in a really hard place right now. Man, I hear what you're saying. That sounds really challenging. Tell me more about it. I'm listening. Especially these parents who have extra hard stuff going on are going to really be wanting someone to listen. And if you're stuck at home with your significant other right now, they're probably not listening anymore. We need someone to talk to. They need someone to talk to. And just even saying, I'm listening. That's 2 words. That can show that you are using empathy and that you care and that you're trying more than jumping in with solutions, more than, all right, so where does the data say? Okay, well, did you run the behavior plan that I gave you? And, jumping back to our kind of like robotic ABA answers, pause, plug in a little nice empathetic statement first. I am listening. I hear you. Tell me more about it. Tell me more about a certain situation, because you could use it for really good data to, work on your plan. Tell me more about what's happening. That pause and inserting a little more feeling, just a validation, that reflect back that you are understanding, that piece that keeps coming up in everything we look at with empathy, can make a huge difference. So this is an empathy map. Have you guys ever seen such a thing? So I learned about this as I've been learning internet marketing, because I have jumped into this whole other world of teaching online courses and trying to reach parents and things. And learning, I don't know anything about marketing. I'm a behavior analyst. I'm good at behavior, but I'm learning about marketing. And that's where I first learned it. Now, Christina Connor with Paradigm Behavior actually was the first one who opened my eyes to use it for parent training. And Christina actually at Paradigm, she has a whole class about this. I highly recommend it. She's awesome. So empathy mapping, and I have a few other samples of what it could look like. It's also something that comes up with universal design within marketing and product development and all this. You don't need to know all that stuff, but other fields use it. And so I have a few examples to show you guys. I'll show you a bunch of different ones. And then if anybody wants to work through one about a pretend client or about yourself, we can. So let's look at this one in detail a little bit. So up here at the top, it says goals real big. We should be good at this part, right? I can't see, I gotta move my cameras. Okay, so who are we emphasizing with? Leanne. You can call your pretend person Leanne. That's a horrible parent who's struggling right now. Who's the parent? That's an easy one. What do they need to do? They probably need to follow your behavior plan that you gave them. Probably need to follow through on any of your recommendations, I'm guessing. Just a hunch of what the goal is of what you want them to do. That could be very specific. They need to withhold access to the iPad except for as a reinforcer, or they need to, have certain expectations in their home that you've recommended, whatever. But then it gets harder for us. Number 3 is, what do they see? And that could be like, literally, what do they see? They see that their house is in a shambles because their children have destroyed it. They see a child crying. They see dinner burning on the stove. What do they actually see? Which seems kind of silly. Like it seems like a lot to sit here and be like, well, they see a blue couch in the corner. But really to think through, what do they actually see? The questions on here, if you can read the tiny print, is like, what do they see others saying and doing? What are they watching and reading? That's more for your marketing. That's for someone like me who's like, well, I want to reach parents of preschoolers and I don't know how to reach all these random parents out there. So I need to think, well, what are they reading? Where are they on Facebook or Instagram? So that's like the marketing side. But your customer that you're trying to get them to buy into your behavior plan is the exact same thing. Let me see what this chat says. What is the other parent accomplishing? Yeah. That was a really good point. I mean, there's so much to think through this. What do they say? This could be what you've actually heard them say. What can we imagine them saying? What do we assume they're saying? But what have they actually said to you? The complaints that they make, the little asides, the random emails, frustrated and worried. What do they do? We're on going to number 5 down at the bottom. It kind of works in a little spiral into the middle. What do they do? What do they do today? What behavior have we observed? Hey, they're on our team here. And what can we imagine them doing? But what do they actually do? So if you're thinking about a certain behavior goal, what are they doing that they're not following through with your BIP? What are they doing instead? What is happening? What do they hear? What are they hearing others say? This is a big one that we have to think about, because these parents that are our clients that we're working with, what are they hearing from their spouse? What are they hearing from their neighbors? What are they hearing from friends who have typically developing kids? Their college friends they all went to school with, and their 3-year-old is now singing songs at the top of their lungs. Like, my child is out of control with her language, but it would be if a friend with a 3-year-old who's not developing well, they're having a comparison issue. What are they hearing from friends? What are they hearing from colleagues? Well, from the mother-in-law, well, my kid turned out fine and I spanked him, that kind of stuff. Like, what do they hear? Number 7, we're now inside the head. What do they think and feel? What are their pains and their gains? What are their fears? Especially if their child has, severe problems right now, their fears are, oh my gosh, what is going to happen to my kid? What is our future going to look like? Are they going to live with me forever? What are their fears? And then what are their wants and their needs and their hopes and their dreams? And really thinking about this parent that is your client and that you've dealt with forever and you have this very professional, rigid relationship with, this takes it to a whole nother place. Like, what are your hopes and dreams? That's not something you ask your clients very often. That's not something we do. Now, pause as we're going through all this. I am not telling you that you need to print this out and do it for every single parent you've ever worked with. All right. I'm not telling you to do more paperwork. I am telling you to, if you have a really hard case, you might print it out and physically write one of these or the next formats of the same thing I'll show you. But to just get it in your head to stop and think about them as a whole person and how we can use that to get them to better follow your behavior plan, which will then help the child in the long run, which we know. So you may have questions about this particular one. I'll show you another one that's not quite as elaborate. It's different. It's different than things that we normally see. So this is another empathy map that's really plain. You put their person in the middle. What do they say, think, do, and feel? But taking it a little bit farther, I think I have a filled in example. This is for a product development, buying a TV, but I just like the way it looked because of the sticky notes. So if you are dealing with a really hard case, sit down with your team and write it out, and everybody can add sticky notes to it. And it's now an interactive team situation. If you work with other behavior analysts or even your RBTs, trying to relate to your families better. This one is the same thing, but in a different format. It's all the same. Breaking it down, we know what they said, right? We know what they did. Those are our top ones. We're good at that. We're good at observing behavior. We're not good at what do we think, what are they thinking, and what are they feeling? That's not something we typically do. But that's something we can't. It doesn't mean we can't think about it and use that as part of our whole person being more empathetic and being more compassionate as part of that too. Okay, so this is a blank one. Does anybody want to work through a pretend scenario that you can name Leanne? We don't have to, but I wanted to offer it. All right, crickets. I hear you. Where am I? See, someone said we should. Thank you. You understand. You're giving empathy to me.
If there's anyone that has someone they want to work through, take the opportunity to do that. Just, I think you all can unmute yourself or put in the chat box, and I can unmute you too. Give it like a minute if nobody says anything. Would you be willing to share this? Do you have this in like a PDF?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you send that to me and I can attach it to the email?
Yes.
Cool.
And you guys, you can just Google image search too. Just so you know, this stuff is common in other fields that are not ours. If Nicole, if you want to, go for it. I would say we can also go on and come back to it, but it'd be great to just work through it while we're talking about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, I don't feel like I have the best example, but I think that that's how I learned. So I think we should do it.
Yes. Okay, so who are we empathizing with?
Do we want to use like a personal example like myself, or do you want me to give another example of hypothetical someone I may know?
Let's just call it hypothetical, whatever you choose to, to do.
Okay, yeah. Let me just think of an example. Hypothetically, of course.
Yes. Call it pretend, no matter what it is. And name her Leanne, this invisible mom. So you can complain about them all you want.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, I have a hypothetical in mind. So where would you like me to start? Do we want to start with who is Leanne?
Yep, we'll start with number one. I do not have the fancy skills. I might be able to write on this. Let me see. Go ahead and talk, and I'll see if I can write on the screen.
Okay, so this person is named Leanne, and this person is a parent, and this person has one child and works primarily in the home as a I mean, just being a parent is a job, but also they have a home business as well. So really, in my mind, 2 jobs.
Okay. And then what is the goal? What do you want Leanne to be doing?
I would love Leanne to follow my protocols and really use things contingent on behavior. Maybe make some more environmental arrangements to make us more successful.
I can't spell while you guys are all looking. Well, that sounds very reasonable. I don't know what Leanne's problem is, but
we're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. Okay, so number 3, what do they see? So what are they actually seeing? Other people saying, other people doing? What are they seeing? What are they reading? What are they watching? What kind of influences are on this person?
Yeah, so I think this person doesn't go outside and engage with a lot of people. So I think most of what they see is what's happening in their home. So they see the behavior aide and they see the supervisor working with their client. They see success since we've begun services. They see out of control behavior when we're not there. And that's what they see. They see their child just running amok and getting whatever they want.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So what are they saying to, oh gosh, what is happening? Sorry. What do they say to you? Or what have you heard them say?
Yeah, Leanne has said to me that she feels like we are effective and that we've helped and things are night and day where they used to be. She's saying that she's very concerned with school coming up and not having ABA services in the school setting, and just really she's really stressed about academics and how that's going to go without having that one-on-one support that she thinks is needed.
Yeah. And so what do they do? What have you seen them doing or imagined them doing?
She talks to me and she talks to people at our agency a lot. I think there's maybe I hope I'm not inferring this, but I think there's some loneliness. Like I said, she doesn't leave the house and have, work colleagues or see people. So I think she communicates with us probably more than is a typical parent would. I know that she's writing letters to insurance, begging them to make exceptions and allow us into the school setting. So I think she's proactively trying to do whatever she can to make her child successful.
I like that you included that, to see that like she is working really hard, just not the way you're really wanting her to. Like she's trying, but how do we get her to try to do the things that would actually be more helpful today?
Right.
Okay, so what is she hearing? What is she hearing from others, people in her world? What do you think?
I think she's hearing no from insurance, and I think she's hearing us carefully distancing ourselves to ensure we're maintaining professionalism and making, writing things that can be used for the insurance company, but based on just what we observe and not going outside of our jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think she hears from her husband that he's not happy with how things are. And I think she hears from the teachers and from the aides that there are a lot of challenges at school.
Yeah, that's a lot of not pleasant stuff for her to be hearing.
Yeah.
So pains, fears, and frustrations, you've already kind of touched on that, like school, future.
Yeah, I think the pains are, hearing no over and over again and feeling like if you just can get the insurance company to understand that they'll make an exception. I think the gains are, that she said ABA has been night and day helpful. And Leanne did help me set up the environment. I stayed there and helped her. She said she was really overwhelmed and we just cleaned up the room together. And I think that was a huge success for us on our end.
And what do you think her hopes are for her kid?
I think she wants her child to be successful, and this child is incredibly intelligent, but doesn't have basic prerequisite skills to sit and attend. And I think that she's worried that he or she might not learn as much if they don't gain those skills.
So do you have any other thoughts on what might be motivating her behavior to not follow your protocol, or is that it?
I think maybe also her husband. I think if her husband was happier with what's happening in the home, that maybe she would feel happier.
That's fair. Okay, so we filled out the whole thing. What is this helping us? Where do we go from here? How is this going to help us work with Leanne better? Get her to follow protocols. Do you have any thoughts just from talking that out loud?
I think I already have a lot of empathy, but I don't know, aside from, writing this letter and trying to remain professional, but also supportive, I don't know what else I can do. So I feel helpless, I guess.
Does anybody else, before I jump in, have any thoughts just from talking through this? Some ideas like, oh, maybe we could say this or rearrange things like this, or the stuff that we're good at manipulating based on this empathy map. So she's stressed about school and the future, and that's what all this time calling insurance is about. So anything, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but any way to change the protocols to look more like school readiness behaviors, getting mom to practice certain behaviors for the purpose of school, even though that's not really your purpose, but making it all align with, excuse me, her goals. Yes, Summer is saying the same thing right now. Maybe highlight how the home protocols will help teach some skills. And it sounds like she's living in the future and not the present. So I see there's a new ACT for parents training coming up next week or so. I'm like, that should talk about that one. Connecting with the present moment, teaching her a little bit about that. But getting on board with mom is worried about school and just saying that, I hear you, that you are worried about school. I understand. Identify behavior that the husband is focused on. Yes. And you guys, we're about to talk about prioritizing your goals, prioritizing your parenting goals. And that's exactly what you're saying right here, Cynthia, that what will get dad on board, what will get some quick wins, right? Some reinforcement for dad, which fixes that husband not on board problem, which then alleviates some of the stress on mom. And it's kind of this, domino effect, but that's really going to help your client, the child. She's being told no a lot. So what yeses can you give her? What yeses can you give this mom? Finding a yes, creating a yes for her, just like we do with our kids, right? We set up scenarios to give them reinforcement. We are good at this with kids. We know how to do it. And now we have to take it to the next level to set that up for mom to get that reinforcement. It's very easy to be hyper-focused on what the future holds. Oh my goodness, there you go. Focus on the present gains and be in the mindset of progress, not perfection. That's like my mantra in my head too. Present over perfect, progress over perfection. And how can we show the mom the present gains? Typically, we take our graph, right? Show her the graph, but also show it off, like have the kid put on a show for mom, demonstrate what they're able to do and celebrate it and make it a fun and exciting family activity. Besides, we're sitting in a meeting and looking at our graphs. Yeah. I think Carrie should be presenting this. If these providers who you're talking about, I'm assuming, are telling you what you need, but not saying, I hear you and I see you. And so let's do things that work for you instead of here's all of the ABA techniques you should know. Are they feasible? Making things a lot easier. And that's what I'm saying I was bad at way back when. I'm probably still bad at it. But making goals that are just too hard, things that are too high. You know, I was just talking to Erin before we started about how homeschool is a crazy amount of work on parents right now in some places. I'm in the Dallas area, and our kindergartner, the first day that we just started homeschool from the district this week, they want us to do 3 hours a day of kindergarten. And I was like, what if both parents work full time at home with these small children that you're managing and teaching them, like direct teaching for 3 hours? Just that alone, think about what we're asking of parents to do behavior plans on top of their regular life. They also have to feed their children dinner after school. They also have to deal with problem behaviors. They need to be cleaned and put to bed. And sometimes that's more than enough. I don't need a 12-step behavior plan to get me there. I need a 1-step behavior plan to get those wins and then move on. Nicole, thank you for sharing with us. Do you have any more questions? Anybody before I move on? When I was a foster parent, my perspective changed. Yes. That's a whole nother ballgame too, of these backgrounds of kids. Like, there's so many different things that if we pause and take a minute to talk it out, to do some empathy. Uh-oh, how do I make all this? I have to delete all of those. Sorry, guys. I tried to be fancy and this is what I got. Let me select all my text boxes. Select. Things are falling apart here. Give me a second. This is what I get for trying to be fancy on my technology, especially this week. Okay, we'll go back to where we were if I can be successful. Okay, so those are more blank ones that you can look at, and this is exactly where we're going. To understand a deeper level how a parent feels when you're not a parent yourself. That's a really good question. To listen and ask them. That's it. And that's something I tell parents all the time with your kids. Like, we sit here and try to make plans for others. I try to plan for my own children. Well, what do you want your reward to be? Just ask them. Percent you have 0 time to do what you want to do. Don't shower for 5 days straight in a quarantine. No. How to respond when someone says, but you're not a parent, you don't get it. That's, you guys are also jumping ahead to what I'm about to say too. I like to say that we need 2 experts here. I'm an expert on behavior. You want to know how many hours I spent in grad school and getting my supervision? A ton. I am an expert on behavior. You are the expert on your child and on your house and your family. And both of us separate is not really going to help. We need 2 experts here to make this work. And that's why it's okay that you're not a parent, because you don't have to know parenting. You're not there as a parenting expert. And even I, who write parenting books and teach parenting courses, I always say, I am not a parenting expert. I don't think anybody can be. Parenting changes from minute to minute in every household. Like, it's totally different from me to you, to you, to you, to you. So I'm not a parent, and that's fine. I am, but I'm saying what you guys say is that, well, no, I'm not a parent. And that's why you have to be the expert on your job as a parent, but I'm here as the expert on behavior. And together we're going to make a plan that works. We're going to figure this out. You guys are jumping ahead to what I was going to talk about later. So prioritizing needs of what actually matters to the family. Right? So we have our plans and we have our little VB map grids, and we know what we're going to work on, right? But then you get into this family, and right now, oh my word, I hope everybody's pivoting with their parent training goals. Everything is different at home, and everything is different at home than it was 17 days ago, than it was a week ago, when we still thought, well, maybe we get to leave our house again at some point. So when we're dealing with parents, we need to figure out what is the hardest part for that person. What is the one thing that is making them crazy right now? Mom and dad, both parents, grandparents, caregivers, whomever is there, I don't care. Whatever adult is there that you're working with. It might be even an older sibling that you need to get a quick win with. What is their biggest issue right now? And how do we get them that quick win? Is there a time of day that's the hardest? Think about using your high P, low P sequence. You know how to do that with kids again. But if you're doing that with parents, you're not going to be like, touch your head, jump up and down, give me 5. What are some things that they can do that are easy? How do we teach those 1-step instructions like we do with the kids to get those high probability requests what can we teach parents? So let's look at an example. If mom's not a morning person and kid is up every morning at 4:30, 5:30. Anything before 6:30 is too early for me. But whatever is too early for this mom, that could ruin their whole day. That starts her off on the wrong foot and she can't turn it back around. So you're over here working on man training at the dinner table, and she's already done by then because she was done at 5:15, and she's not going to do any of your behavior plan. So we need to recognize what is the priority for this parent. So what are some things we could do to help mom with a kid who wakes up early in the morning? We could work on teach the child to independently dress, get their own breakfast, give them something quiet to do until mom wakes up. Stay in their room till a certain time. We have the little clock that turns green, or we used to. We shut it off now that we don't go to school. My daughter is 3, and at age 2, she could stay in her room till her clock turned green because we tied a reinforcement contingency on that. Leisure skills, get a new coffee pot with a timer, get an espresso machine. That's what we have. Get, work on that. Whereas that might not have ever been in your behavior plan to work on getting your kid to stay in the room till 6:30 in the morning. Like, really? Have you ever written that in a behavior plan? No, but think of if you fixed that one thing, and it wouldn't be super hard because all of these things were not super hard things for us to do because we're really good behavior analysts, right? All of us. If you fix that one morning issue, even if you bought mom 10 more minutes, she would love you forever. And she is now on your team. She's got that quick win. She has a history of reinforcement. And you showed empathy by listening to her that mornings suck and she doesn't want to deal with this anymore. And you've got a place to go. You've got a starting point. Now we can get closer to following those protocols that you want her to follow. Another example is a mom that I worked with on my online stuff. And her kid would tantrum when buckling into the car seat. And this example is not at all timely anymore now that we don't go places. But the mom was struggling because she was trapped in her home. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she couldn't go places because she couldn't get the kid back in the car. She was getting hit and kicked and injured and wrestling a screaming kid, which when they're little, we've all done that. I mean, every parent has strapped a kid in a car seat or a stroller as they're thrashing. But as they get older, that's not acceptable. And so this might not be something you realize. If you're not doing community outings with these people, you don't realize that this mom's mental health is deteriorating because she can't go to the grocery store because her kid's out of control getting in the car. And why would we even know about that unless we ask, what is the biggest problem? And then we listen. Or maybe she just drops comments here or there. Well, we tried to go to Target the other day and then he was just kicking me in the face again. And you're like, wait, what? Let's talk about that. I'm listening. And you use that empathy to figure out where that problem is. And once you get that problem back under control, which in this case we use shaping and a reward, the kid got a reward for getting in the car, for getting near the car, and eventually buckling himself into the car seat because he was older. And they could go back out in the community again. And this mom's mental health was so much better, which I feel super weird saying that because I think my mental health would be better if I could go to the store right now. But that's the life we're living. So figuring out what is the problem, because it might not even be on your behavior plan. Yeah. You aren't demonstrating. Yeah. If you're not taking a minute to think through the empathy map is, our structure way to do it. And I think that's why I like it so much, because that is our little task analysis of things. It helps us out so much. So we already said this, parent training labels, thinking through, do we have to call it parent training? Because that kind of sounds like dog training and it can be demeaning, honestly. Thinking through your words. I have seen other presentations on this. I hope you've heard this other than right here, but what else can you call it? And then we already said we need 2 experts, the ABA expert, family engagement. There you go. I'm like, I know there's lots of good examples. I think I've even seen a thread in the COBA group before of people sharing ideas. So search that, or we'll find it and share it with you guys. Jargon replacers. Oh, good. There you go. Act for parenting. 3 wishes. That's perfect. Yeah, that's what we need to figure out what are your 3 wishes and how can I actually help you get one of those wishes? And then you'll be on my team and we can get this done. We can, follow all the plans we need to for our protocols and our VB maps and all the things we're still doing. But how do we get them those wins first? So thinking about jargon replacers, you guys, this is what I do all day long. So you don't have to do this. You can steal from me and my wording, and please do. But thinking of how to better teach parents about these things as opposed to always having to say, well, your positive reinforcement didn't work, but it's a reward. Positive reinforcement is a reward that works. That's it. And this is taken out of my first book. I just copy and pasted it because, be smarter, not harder. Randomly giving out rewards is just a waste of your time if you're not paying attention and seeing that they work. And in ABA, we actually call that positive reinforcement. So still give them the words, but explain it in regular people language. That helps us be more compassionate and empathetic. That we don't sound like, we're stuck up science snobs, but still give them the words that they should totally learn them. That's a good thing, but you can say it in easier ways. A token economy is a reward system. We just set it up in a smart way so we know it's working. It's a sticker chart that works. The pre-mag principle, first then. Did you try that first then? Oh, let's do the first then. We don't have to always call it the pre-mag principle because again, that's, kind of makes us a little more robotic. Oh, the real word for that is pre-mag principle, but it's just first do the thing and then get the reward. Making it in parent-friendly language. And I have written 2 whole books about this that you can copy and paste directly from. I have a ton of blog posts that you can just copy and paste and reuse. You do not have to create this all yourself if I have already done some work for you. So what do parents want to hear? We also kind of hit on this. Practical ideas, things they can do now. Not necessarily when you present assessment results, a lot of times it just looks like deficits. Why? Because that's the goals we write. That's what you turn into insurance. You're, looking at the progress, where are we going to get? But when you're listening to it as a parent, it just sounds like my kid can't do all these things. So we want to show them that we have practical things to fix what's going on in their home right now, that we're actually listening to them, again, reflecting back our understanding, and that we notice their child's strengths. And that we see their kid as a person and not as this assessment that can't. So we're not going to go into this a whole lot, but I can't talk about working with parents without talking about behavior skills training. Behavior skills training is your gold standard of parent training. Okay. I do it with my own kids as a parent, and I can do it in 30 seconds once you get used to it. Once you get used to, we're going to always practice and we're always going to rehearse and this is the way we communicate now. And it feels really silly. It feels really absurd, especially now that you're going to have to do it like we are right now on Zoom or HIPAA compliant, whatever, telehealth. But step 1 is instruction. And that's where we stop too often. Okay. I think we're good at instruction, except with this caveat that we need to cut it down and get to the point faster. Okay, so teach them the skill they need, get to the point, only tell them the points they need. All right, you can use a script, some bullet points, 1-page reminder cheat sheet, and then model it, act it out. When I'm working with kids, I am very good at modeling and being dramatic and silly and goofy to get their attention because I'm good at working with kids. When I'm working with a parent, that feels bad. It does not feel good at first, but you can break down those barriers and get them on your side and get some buy-in and make it more fun. If you don't want to be silly and goofy, that's okay too, but you do still need to act it out. You do still need to model it. You can use video models. We know all of these things, right? Again, I think that as behavior analysts, we also might stop at step 2 and get the first 2 done. but we know the research behind behavior skills training, and we know it works on everybody under the sun and every skill under the sun. There's so much research on this that we can't stop at number 2. We have to make the parent act it out. Okay, we have to rehearse, whether that's like right here, whereas I'm the kid and you're going to be the parent and we're going to act it out like this, or they're going to practice with their own child because you have that available to you. Whatever, you can make a script for them to read, and then making sure you don't skip number 4, feedback. And that feedback doesn't mean corrective feedback. Feedback means just telling them how they did. And sometimes that's corrective, but that could be just some prompting to help them get those quick wins instead of being like, well, you did that wrong, but hey, don't forget to say whatever. But lots of praise and positive reinforcement for them. That feedback in step 4 does not mean error correction. It means feedback. Tell them how they did. And praise and good stuff's included. So this is a super quick script. In my Enjoy Parenting book, actually, I use behavior skills training and give scripts of how parents can use it that are this short. How to use it for various times of day. So instructions, you just tell them, this was one of the things we just talked about in our empathy map example. The iPad's only reward when they get their 5 stickers, give the sticker every few minutes, yada, yada. Okay, I'm going to be the parent and you're the kid. So pretend like you're doing your homework. Great job. Here's your sticker. Woohoo. That's it. Okay, now you're the parent and I'm the kid. Okay, I'm going to pretend to do my homework. What are you supposed to say to me? Don't forget to give me the sticker. Tell me what I did right, and you prompt them through how to do it. All right, now let's go try it with your child. That was 4 steps in order of a research-based practice that does not take a lot of time and effort. So that's my soapbox on behavior skills training. This is my visual to help you remember it, but it really is the gold standard. Okay, so seek feedback from parents afterwards. This is also something that is really hard and uncomfortable to be like, how do you think I did as a trainer? How am I doing as your behavior analyst? But more like, well, what did you like about it? What do you not like? You could do some anonymous like Survey Monkey kind of thing. If you have a lot of clients, then maybe they feel a little more empowered to be honest with you. Asking for ideas, just empowering the parents more. That's really all it is. How to get buy-in from them. I mean, again, this will help you identify and prioritize those areas that you don't even know about, like mornings or getting in the car or whatever kind of stuff is making them crazy. Don't reinvent the wheels. This is my stuff. Follow it. I will help you out. You can always email or message me and I will share stuff, to pinpoint what you need. But there's a lot of other people doing this too. And these are just people that I have collaborated with in the last year or so. There's a lot of us now trying to disseminate our science in a more accessible way specific to parenting. So that's all of these people right here. And again, if you want me to put this list somewhere like with links or something, I can do that. Just know that you don't have to start from scratch. You obviously know that because you're already in this COBA group that is helping each other out and supporting each other. So I hope you already know that. But there's lean on people and talk to people. And so a lot of these, as I have been growing my online stuff, I just send a Facebook or Instagram message. I'm like, hey, I don't know you, but you want to work together on something? Amaryllis is in here right now. She's helped me with getting my first book out in Spanish. Like, this is where it came from, saying, do you have it in Spanish? And I said, no, I don't know how to do that. And so we learned how to do it. You do not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to making things more parent-friendly. Use what people are already doing and ask. All of the people on this list have been super helpful and friendly. So I think we're going to skip this stuff because I talked too long. So these are your takeaways. 3 important ones are on this slide. It should not be hard. So we talked about empathy and what that means. But what I want you to take away and think about is identify where you need to pause and do more in-depth empathy mapping. Is it right now you just need to take a breather and pause and think about all of your clients as a whole, as this whole world has shifted and as your services are probably more telehealth or whatever, and then empathy map, draw one out, physically do one, fill one out in your hard situations. You don't have to sit and write stuff out. You know, do it when you need it, just like all these other skills. Prioritize what families need to do. So stop and think about your families right now. And then even next time you meet with them, just say, what's your biggest issue right now? What's going on in your house? And then use friendly terms. And your gold standard is behavior skills training. I think one of the other big 3 takeaways might have been that compassion, sympathy, and empathy are not all the same. Remember that. Those are different. Just a clue. So final words, empathy fuels connection. And I think that connection is more important than ever right now for all of us as humans, but especially for special needs parents who used to have more help and now they're doing it on their own. And so you need to have that connection. And then there's a whole bunch of references. Anybody have any questions?